So, I don't know how many of you know about the Templar story that I've been trying to get across. I think I put a video up on what I think happened during the times that they were arrested in France and escaped and came over here. But it's funny because I've just found a story in a little book called Legends of Lamplit Lewes. It's brilliant. So in my book, I wrote that the Templars had left France and they fled and they came up the Lewes and they were dressed in black insignia so that no one would recognise who they were, because they didn't want people to find out that they had the treasure and then report back to the king in France that they'd come here, and then they go off to Scotland and pretend like they never were here, basically, and then the king of France then goes and fights up in Scotland all the time to try and reclaim the treasure that he never found. And they departed France in 1307, so this is a really important date. So now let's have a look at and that's when Friday the 13th was the unlucky day, because that's the day that apparently they got arrested, and now it's become unlucky. There's obviously stuff online that says that that's not true, as there is with everything. It's like in a moment you find something, oh no, that was definitely not the right story, this is why it happened. But there seem to be an awful lot of stories that reflect that in the year 1307 the Templars were arrested, and that's why it's unlucky on Friday the 13th, but it was in October. So now listen to this. This is interesting. Castle Gate, which is Lewes, the castle in Lewes, where I've done a couple of videos. You see me standing outside of there. A medieval ghost story. Here is the massive gateway of Lewes Castle, but 700 years ago, according to a legend, it was not enough to protect a wicked man from his fate. It was near midnight on a sultry August night in the year 1307. That is really, really critical. A storm had been brewing all day. High in his chamber in the castle, Lord Eustace de Warenne, I've not heard of this person, so I'm going to find out more about him, could not sleep. Down below at the gate, the guards kept watch. The drawbridge had been raised for the night and the mighty gates bolted shut. Suddenly there was the sound of hoofs, and a troop of horsemen, all clad in black, rode up to the gate demanding to see the Earl. The guards refused, whereupon an unseen hand severed the chains that held the bridge, whilst another drew back the mighty bolts of the gates. The horsemen rode into the castle. Now, the rest of the story is all kind of a bit far-fetched, in as much as they were like ghost knights and all of this stuff. I'm guessing that the story has been exaggerated over the years to the point at which now they were ghosts and dead people, but actually I think that these were the exact people that I've written about in my book. They were Templars. What's interesting is that Friday the 13th falls in October, and they're saying that this was on an August night in 1307. So it's either the end of August. It's about a month or 2 months after this that the Templars are arrested, and it turns out that the Templars were forewarned, or some of them were in France. They were forewarned that they were going to be arrested, that they were going to have all their stuff taken, and the king in France never found any of their treasure, and I am certain that they brought it here. And now I'm even more certain there's an actual reference to how it got here. And then if you really want to know, I've tried to explain this a couple of times, but you need to look up who Peter de Melendonès and I think it was his dad, Edward de Melendonès, Rogerius de Melendonès. He was the Grand Master of the Knights Hospitaller. His son was Peter de Melendonès. The first rector at Hamsey Church, documented, is Peter de Melendonès, and then the person before him was Roger. So where do you think the Templars came when they came to Lewes in the year 1307? Clearly some went to the castle by the sound of this story, but the others ended up at Hamsey Church, spoke to Peter de Melendonès. Their treasure is under the church. It is there.